I think this is gonna be one of the videos that I don't just dance, 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 dance. I hit a lot. Let me do one. Oh, okay. One. Ooh, like that, don't you? Like that. Let me stop. I'm cold, so I'm gonna definitely sit like this. And I'm gonna try to extend my eyes for once because I'm so used to like this. That's my strength point, looking this close. But retaining the focus and looking outwards is, well, it's not my base. And I guess in this video, well, this video is not supposed to be me trying to consider why, but if I considered why, it's probably because you focus too much on the outside. There's not a lot of good things, especially for someone like me. Like I have found that in order to be positive and to be happy, often you have to create your own positivity and happiness. And in some cases, when you do emanate a light and a purpose, and people around you don't have that, they will try to attack you, attack your purpose, and create scenarios and environments that are toxic to that well-being that you have harvested for yourself. So if you spend a lot of time trying to gauge your perception of yourself by looking outwards to others, you might actually find yourself becoming diminished. So I oftentimes find myself avoiding eye contact with certain individuals on purpose. And there's nothing wrong with that. It only becomes a problem when if you're trying to sustain a communication or contact with this person and you're avoiding them. But if I'm sitting over here and you're over there and you're staring at me, I do not have to spend the duration of the 30 minutes that I'm sitting here looking at your bitch ass hating on me. And I guess that's just something that while I'm talking to you about, I can be honest and be like, if I reflect on my history, my synchronic history of past, I'm like, maybe that's why I'm nearsighted. Because I actually had a conversation with a woman in Giant about that. She's just like, oh, you wear glasses too. It's because you're avoiding the bullshit. And I was just like, yeah, it's probably a good thing to avoid some of the bullshit. But that wasn't what this video was supposed to be about. I actually was creating this video because I wanted to I wanted to open up a huge Pandora box. Like I realized that for like the last couple of years, 3 years specifically, since I've been back home in my hometown, Washington D.C., where I'm from. This is my home. This is the painting that the kids did on the wall while we were gone. I'm still trying to clean up. And I realized that I've been doing a lot of like siphoning of my memories, trying to do like a lot of recollection of what I learned post graduation, and even just like the duration of the life that I've been existing on this planet. Like I am 30 years old. I have turned 30 years old officially. I look good for 30. I look better than 30, and I intend to continue on like that, and I know I will because I believe in the God who strengthens me, and I know who He's brought me so far. I know what He's done for me. I know what He's given me, and in light of recent acknowledgments that in this world there are a lot of decisions you have to make for yourself in terms of your own personal well-being and happiness. And of course, like giving is part of that. Like being like while you're conspiring for your own well-being and your happiness, you need to be a conspirator of others' well-beings and happiness. And I don't mean that in a toxic sense, because a lot of people, they say they're about themselves, I'm a charitable and good individual, that I care about others. But a lot of times those individuals are caring about people who can do something for them. So it's not really a selfless, generous act. It's more of a not even a reciprocal relationship. It's more of a, what's the word I'm looking for? It's more of what can you do for me, and it's not the same thing. You will not reap the same sort of happiness from giving to yourself and others selflessly as you do. And sometimes you have to be selfish, but you will not reap the same happiness of giving of yourself into others selflessly as you will in trying to create circumstances where I call them, it's something that I've been noticing because I'm currently a waitress. I am a BA graduate from SUNY Purchase, class of 2011. I did start my master's in 2012 with Southern New Hampshire University. My course load included uh, Now I'm thinking project management because since I've been back in DC, I've been matriculated for the last 3 years, doing cert programs from project management, medical administration, medical assistant, construction core, which I thought would be beneficial to my real estate license, which I did come first thing I got back to DC. I started focusing on that because I had a friend in New York who, opened my eyes up to the importance of real estate, and I learned the importance of real estate in New York. New York is a real estate place, and the real estate in New York and the real estate in DC is so different, although they're trying to make DC very similar. And it's really the education that I got not only from my undergrad, because when I say God sent me to that school and God helped me get through that school in 3 years and not four. I graduated earlier than other people. I took overload credits. Like, I didn't transfer with a bunch of credits and start. I went to school with 3 credits and graduated in 3 years. Like, there are people who transferred with way more credits and I finished before them. And there were people who started around the same amount as me and I still finished before them. And so I use that as my resume, as my sticking point, because, a lot of people will judge you. And I noticed I've been judged very, very unfairly, I find, in most cases, because a lot of people will make assumptions about you based off of what they perceive about you, and perception is not always true. Perception is not always true. Perception is another person's perception. You don't know their past and their history and the way they think that allows them to think of you in a way that may or may not be true. And when someone thinks of you in a way that is not true, it can have a very deleterious effect. And it's very important for you to be able to, like, and this is just going to be one of my personal growth strategy videos. This is going to be one of my videos where I am literally just unloading a lot of different things, because it's not only important for me to share that for myself, but it's also important for other people, especially young individuals, or even other individuals who are older and they're having, like, sticking points, because we all going through sticking points. Like, I definitely realized when I was going through, I was sticking in New York. When I say I was sticking in New York, like, how does someone who graduated in 3 years not complete her online master's immediately? Like, it should have been easier for me, but I understand some things that had went into effect. And I found myself when I came back to DC, when you release yourself from an environment that has been tightening your ability to move at the same range that you could have moved when you found yourself to be freer. And I did have a lot of things coming at me. You do find that you start to become more of the person that you were, or you truly are, if it didn't destroy you. And I pray to God nothing would destroy me, and God has really helped me. And that's one of the reasons why I'm sharing this video with you, because I know how I was protected. Like, I am aware of how great things and people are destroyed, and it's one of the saddest things that faces humanity in general throughout history. I'm a theater major. I look specifically into the relationship of people. I look into the plot lines, subplot lines, and the overall message of a story. We were trained to do that. We were trained in Shakespeare to think like that. We were trained in modern theater to think like that. We were trained in the dramatics to look at not only European drama, but African drama and Indian drama and Japanese drama. And these are ancient texts. These people are telling stories about how we interact with each other. And I really became fascinated with that, because at first I wanted to be a psychologist. I went to AU. I'm from DC, so immediately after high school, I went straight to AU, American University, to pursue my dream of becoming a psychologist, because I wanted to help people. Or psychiatrist. At the time, I really didn't know the difference, because, when you're in high school, you get a general idea, but it's not really until you get into college where you start to kind of, like, get more structured education into yourself. Like, education is a tool. You get structured education into yourself to help you identify not only yourself, but the purpose you have in your life, and the purpose and things you acknowledge about people. Like, knowledge is power. Wisdom is power. And let anyone who tries to come against you remember that God has told you to seek it out, and that he will establish you with that. There are people that are literally trying to attack your education, your wisdom, your mind. The Bible says that is the first place the devil tries to attack. And so it's one of the places that I always, always, always stress. It's literally been my lifelong purpose to understand the mind. When I realized that psychology wasn't for me, because I found from literally psychology 101 that the practice that I thought I would be doing was very different from the way the practice is practiced in the United States, where if I was given a person with schizophrenia or bipolar disorder, I'm automatically supposed to give you a medication. And I understood the importance of that. Like, I'm literally sitting in class, I'm asking the head of the department, who is our professor, what this all means and why we need this, and the reality of the need to stabilize somebody. Because, I can look at your histrionics and be like, this is why you're reacting like this. But if it takes me 5 months to a year to finally extract that and help you realize that before you can stop your destructive habits, you might have already destroyed yourself. And so I could imagine and predict that that's probably why medication was pushed to the forefront. I didn't want to practice like that. I realized I was an accounting Academy of Finance student when I was in high school. My mom was accounting PhD, so my background is business. I think business, I think money, I think long term. And that's just the way that I've been raised and trained by the mother who raised me and the school that I went to look at things. Like, I was literally accepted into the school because I could think about, at the age of 15, I could think about how I could start a business in my mother's basement doing babysitting. Like, that was why I got accepted into the school. Like, a full out business. Like, what would I do with the money? What type of fridge I would set up? Like, they gave me an entrance into the school because I already created business plans at 15. And so often I found that when I got into the real world, when I didn't go straight for management, I did get a management job straight after college. But I had a boyfriend in New York that went to college with me. He was still in college when I graduated, and I moved up to New York around Fashion Week with him. During his senior year, I was literally living on campus with him, the same campus I graduated. I went back because, well, it seemed like a good idea at the time. Like, I wanted to be in New York so bad. I picked the school specifically to be in New York, and when I got to school, I was offered modeling contracts, but the modeling contracts wanted to pull me out of school, and I had just learned so much in my experience. Like, I had been accepted into America's Next Top Model the same time that I was getting my acceptance letter to the university, and I was looking at the contract, and I was realizing some of the realities of the way businesses and image crafting specifically for that type of field works. The modeling industry said that by the time I hit 22, I would not be useful to them anymore. Look at me at 30 and I look 18 still. Can you imagine if I had allowed them to use me like that? Do you imagine the lifestyle that I would have lived that could have potentially moved me away from looking like this at the time that I am? So I thank God for some of the things that my mom tried to create for me, the things that he created for me, even sometimes the little barriers that my ex created for me that purposely forced me to not just look at myself as a model, but to look at myself as a businesswoman. To not only look at myself as a businesswoman, but to look at myself as a humanitarian. And because of my master's, not only just look at myself as a humanitarian or someone who's supposed to be mastering you, but like my course load had me looking at, what was it? Organizational behavior. So it's pretty much human resources, like my ability to sit in management and understand how your behaviors, which is the psychology, I'm back to using my theater degree, I'm back to using the psychology that I want, how your behaviors and the behaviors of your peers and colleagues and workers affect your business. And the things that you have to understand are happening in your place. Workplace bullying that can happen from management, that can happen among peers. Specific environmental stressors at work and at home that can affect the productivity of your employees, and the need for management to step in. Like, I might not have graduated yet from my master's, but it doesn't mean that the education is not there. There are a lot of people who are sitting in positions that are not making the monetary needs that your business could be making, because the people who are sitting in management, they don't care about the employees, they care about their bottom numbers, but they don't understand how important that human resources are. And there are a lot of people who are sitting in human resources that they don't get called in until the last minute, and by the time they get called in, they're such a marginal group sometimes. Like, the human resources is such a marginal group with them, and often sometimes corrupt. I have literally sat in New York with a college degree, I was enrolled in my master's program, and I could not get jobs outside of retail in management to go to work. Like, I literally sat for an interview for Regis, and I passed through. I was going just in for the secretary position, and the person interviewing me was like, "You definitely would be a manager here. Like, why are you going for secretary?" And that was because I had seen so much in New York that I was like, this is not the career that I want for myself long term, but I understand that a lot of people are doing jobs to make ends meet, and they intend to stay for 1 or 2 years. Why pitch myself into a position where you might burn me out for the 2 years that I'm committed to being here, when I can work at a lower rate? I can still give to the higher level. There's nothing wrong with sitting down here. Like, I'm a waitress right now. There's nothing wrong with me being that serving at this level that blocks me from executing my ability up here. If you come in, I'm a personal trainer. If you come into my restaurant and you're doing something nutritionally I notice is defunct, because a lot of people do, I notice I noticed eating disorders very easily, not only because I did physical conditioning while I was in college and nutritional therapy for dancers, which they have the same requirements as models, and I literally have kept my model body, which most models lose their body because they have eating disorders. Not all models. Some models do lose their body, so they're like, oh, the aging effects. No, you're only aging like that because you have a disorder. Your metabolism will tell you the truth. There is no lie to your body. There is God don't create lies. There is no lie to your body. If the body you got is the body you earned. It is literally the body you earned. And so if I'm sitting in this environment and I'm like, I want to help people, I literally went into this field because when I was in New York, I went into personal training. A lot of the trainers are different. We do interviews on each other. We learn. Everyone has something to bring. Everyone has something to bring. Some trainers are better for emotional support. They're not going to train you to the physical capabilities to the same degree that I may be able to train you. In retrospect, too, I might not be your trainer, though. I might be better suited for an athlete than for you because I might get tired of your defeating thoughts, and you might not want to work some capability. Or I found that some females don't gravitate to me as a personal trainer. Why? Because I have what they consider an ideal, unrealistic body type. So if you believe that girls can't look like me, and I look like me, and I've worked my butt off. I've been an athlete since I was a child. I literally used to work out at 5 with my sisters. Like, we used to use random things to do things, and like their traits. You know what I mean? Like I watched my little nephew. He's like 6 years old. He's the oldest, and he works out now. He does things like he has a completely different body type than his siblings, but it's not like anyone forced him to. That's just who he is naturally. And I was exactly like him. Like I naturally sucked out behaviors that at an early age that gave me what I got. And so if you think that you can't, if you think someone like me doesn't exist, you will have a resentment when I become your trainer, and I can't help you. And there's sometimes destructive behaviors where you think that because you're giving me money, you can abuse me or diminish me. No, they don't work like that. Again, I have a background where I'm supposed to think as your manager. Even if I'm not taking that position, I already have it in my head. I'm just like, organizational behavior tells me, watch out for this behavior. This is detrimental. And so then, I have an accounting background. I need to strengthen my business law background. I started 3 businesses when I was in New York, and a lot of that has to do with the fact. Well, like I said, a lot of that has to do with the fact that those were the things that I found needs and strengths in myself that I could offer. And as a female, naturally, I tried to bootstrap it. Females get the lowest funding rates for when it comes from venture capitalists. We often are the ones who have to make do with little and create much. But it is a very strong business model when it does become successful. When you do overcome all the major hurdles from not having it and making little things work, like you eventually have a business model and plan that will be completely different than somebody who got all the initial funding but didn't work out the metrics of how this business is going to function. Like I can see at a base level what type of person I need to hire into my company very easily. Like for instance, like I have a personal training company that I started, Body Whisper NYC, and I intend to make it into like a holistic healthcare spa plus personal training. So like, I intend to bring multiple avenues, because a lot of times, like my mom was sick. A lot of times people don't realize they need to make changes in themselves until they get to this place, and then there are other people who have, superficial reasons for wanting it. And that's that marginal group where it's just like they only want to do the work. Some of them don't want to do the work. A lot of people want to take shortcuts. A lot of people think that if you diet, you will get this body. You will not get this body starving yourself. I eat. If I starved myself when I was 5, I would not be 5'11". If I starved myself when I was 5, I would not be skinny. And that's the truth. But a lot of people don't have that education. So a lot of my work is education. But not everyone's privy to that, and not everyone wants to hear the truth. And that's something that you have to realize, dude. Like, you won't always get the customer that you want. You will not always get the right audience. And like, one of the most resilient things that I learned, and that was also because I was literally like in competition with this crazy ass model. Like she marketing, like she loved that social media marketing, and like, marketing's not always what it seems. Like that was part of my degree. My intention to finish my master's is finance and marketing. Like, I intend to get my MBA in finance and marketing as a double major. So when I met this girl, I was already matriculated in my master's. I was already pursuing the finance and marketing curriculum for my master's. And so looking at marketing and the marketing courses that I was forced to behave in and execute in, I developed a very strong SWOT ability, which is strength, weakness, opportunities, and threats. Like the ability, and I developed that in college too, because I had a professor that was he was ex-CIA and ex-general, military general, and he was teaching American history through militarization. And so he taught us how to understand how history has been played in, and it was a really great class for me, especially during my senior year, because I was a theater major, and theater is literally just a reiteration of historical, factual, sociological actions and effects that is manipulated into a time frame and a short theater space to execute and educate, in many ways, educate the audience and give them something to think about. Sometimes you can create alternate universes where it's just like, what could be? You know what I mean? When you wanna create a utopian environment, the first place you practice it before you try to put it in government, maybe, is to put it on theater. Like we learned a lot about the French theater and why they often try to cut the theater, and the FCC wants to cut certain things. But I learned a lot about those things, and the ability to really accurately assess and document. Because, man, you will get confused in this life if you run, 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 run. There are a lot of people competing with you and don't have the same purpose as you. And if you compete with them, they will move you off your center. I said when I was in New York, man, you can have purpose, you can have drive, you can keep going. You might be doing a cha-cha slide. You might be doing a cha-cha slide for a while, and it's okay. It's okay, because there are a lot of things that came out of that I didn't expect to benefit from. Like, I never thought I was going to be a waitress. Even more, I never thought I was going to like it. And I don't know how to make this video short, because I feel like I can literally go on for like an extra 20 minutes. But then if I do, I will be losing the structure of this. Like, I didn't prepare any case notes. I had a general idea. I did practice in my head what I would like to talk about. But, you know, when you, like, I literally, like, I prep myself like a politician, but without the team. Like, you know what I mean? Like, why didn't you write this down? I'm like, well, the time that I was writing it down was the creation time. And, you know, by the time I wrote it down, I would find myself mentally procrastinating about the necessity of such things. Like, the reason I'm even making these videos, because I found in many cases I was typing it all up on Facebook, and it seemed discombobulated. Like, I'm like, you know what, people are probably going to think this is an angry post, because, like, they can't hear the syntax of my voice. And trying to explain something in text that some people may or may not want to read, and some people may already have preconceived perceptions of you, especially in social media. Not everybody who's looking on your page wants you to be doing well. So can you imagine if you're writing something or making something of importance, and you're trying to explain, especially a personal narrative, and you're trying to explain your personal narrative, and you're aware the main people who are probably going to read your narrative don't like you, don't give a shit about you, but they're only paying attention to you because it makes them feel good when you're suffering, and that's sad. And that's theater, man. That's sociological, and the Bible tells us about that. But I'm not saying all of this to make you feel like doldrum and be like, what's wrong? Because there are plenty of good things. Like, I would not be here talking to you if I was like, no, they're not. They're good things. They're good people, and they're good actions. And that was the whole point of me even mentioning like the organizational behavior, the management, the ability to execute as a leader is your ability to say, I have a purpose that overrides this natural state, because everyone is down here. A leader is somebody who can rise above this bullshit, because a lot of people, they get caught up in this. Like, you know what, they realize, hey, you know what, I might not have a body, but I'll do this, I'll do that, and it forms a cesspool, because now you're competing at a level, there's no standard down here. You are literally, when you put yourself, what did the Bible tell? Don't put your cash to pearls before dogs and swine. When you put yourself in an environment where you want to compete with your greatness in a cesspool where there's no standard, no one, it's whoever wins today by any means necessary. You're not taking your society and your people somewhere where they want to be. Like, we look at historical texts, we look at even literary texts, where we see over time in history, and like the United States is a completely different place than the rest of the world, because when we look at the rest of the world, we see a lot of corruption. Not to say that there's no corruption here, but we see a lot of long-standing corruption, and it has a lot to do with the value system and I guess, you know, when you feel that life is so short, and sometimes it feels like that, and sometimes it is. When you feel like life is so short, sometimes you don't care by what means you get through. But often that same mentality, when you set out on your journey of not caring, creates a whole stream of nothingness and drama and pollution that doesn't allow you to even make it out, not even close to the goal you were even imagining for yourself, if you even had a goal to begin with, and even if you had a purpose. They often talk to you about how you're supposed to surround yourself with the right people. What happens if you can't guarantee that? What happens? My mom literally was like the one person I could talk to every day when I was in New York on the phone. And I wasn't always surrounded by the right people. I was often, when I was doing my master's, because I was doing it online, I was not surrounded by people thinking the way that I was being trained to think. I was not surrounded by leaders and managers. I was not surrounded by people. Like, I left a lot of the things and people that were of the level that I was aspiring to, like my first mentor. And I sometimes, like, I'm even getting emotional about it because I, like, you sometimes you mourn the things you didn't have. You mourn the opportunities that could have been, because you're just like, wow, like, how did I not know? Like, you sometimes wonder about, like, why did I have to suffer like this? Like, it could have been so much easier if, and you know, in that morning, even me, like, I'm like, why am I getting so emotional right now? Like, I was not planning on getting emotional right now. Even when you're mourning those things, you like, I found that even though it wasn't easy for me and that I wasn't surrounded by the right people, like, I still kept a head on me somehow. Somehow I reached out to the right people sometimes, if be it my mother, be it a stranger that I had to talk to. Like, I literally ended up having random mentors. I had one producer mentor, like, I mean, like a Hollywood producer, like, reach out and want to be my mentor. Now, he wasn't good for the long term, but it was still somebody in a period where I had went before I met that mentor, I had gone a good 6 months to a year before that, isolated from people that were of the ambition that I had, of the desires, and you know what I mean? That the execution level that I knew I could create at. I wasn't surrounded by that until I literally met him while I was bartending. Like, you do a lot of jobs in New York. You understand the importance of networking. You can network anywhere. You can network everywhere. And I wasn't one of those people that I like to leave outside my house and just go network. As a female, like, I was reading about the military. As a military female person, I'm not even supposed to give you my card. I'm a military person, and I'm not even supposed to give you my business card at my power. So, like, if they do that at that high level of, like, defense, then me as a female, I shouldn't think that in order to make my career, I need to go out to any restaurant or bar and sit down and hope that I network. Like, it's dangerous. If it's dangerous for them, it's dangerous for me. So you have to create other ways, especially as a female. There are certain things that do work better for one gender that don't work, and that's the importance of, like, identity. My senior thesis was on identity and reprogramming yourself. I also did a theatrical piece because I was a theater major, but you have to have a research paper with any artistic piece that you do at my school. So even though I wanted to write this screenplay, I needed a research paper. So my research paper was identity and characterization because, when I was in one of my acting classes, I had multiple acting classes, in addition to directing, producing, transmedia and performance, playwriting, screenwriting, and then the mandatory literary works that most of the students who were in the other theater departments and literary departments had to go through, which teaches history, sociology, behaviors, and what inspired the writers. Like, what inspired Shakespeare to write about those things, and what lessons do we learn in Shakespeare? Like, why do we have even military personnel learning about Shakespeare, and people in the government have to read these and understand how things work, because there's always an ulterior motive. It's not just about you, even though you might be a player. And Shakespeare has this one great line that he uses in Hamlet that, like, there's no small role. All roles are. Is that Stanislavski? No, that's Stanislavski. I gave Shakespeare a title to the wrong thing. There's no such thing as a small role. Like, you could be the busser, and you're the busser that saved this important person's life because you've noticed something. You know what I mean? Like, you could be the washerwoman, and you gave the right person some advice. Like, what's that one movie that I watched when I was a little girl, and I thought that thing was so good? Thomas Jefferson's Black Mistress. He couldn't marry her because of the times, But after his wife died, he fell in love with her, and like he influenced him. She influenced him to be like, hey, this ain't right. You can't do this thing. He couldn't do too much because he was still the society that he came into in the U.S. was so new. Like you have to understand like the economics. That's why I went back to business. After I finished my theater degree, I was like, yeah, that's great. I learned a lot in theater, but I still have to make money. Like, by the time you get to your senior year, you're being asked to produce, and like when you're asked to produce, that's why I realized I needed my master's, because I was just like, okay, now I'm being asked to produce. I have to pay for the screenplay, right? Like the what is it called? Now I can't, the playbill. I have to pay for the playbill that I give out to my audience that reads like, when you go to church and they give you the paper, like I gotta pay for that while I put on my piece. Where's the money coming from? The studio space that you practice in, you gotta pay for that. The studio space that you're gonna act in for the performers, you gotta pay for that. The lightings and the people, you gotta pay for that. And so then, like, I was back to my business thing, and I was just like, wow, like God is really doing a number on me, because I went from Academy of Finance in high school to being like, I want to just be a psychologist. And the academy background was going to help me set up my own practice. And then I realized, hey, this is different what I thought. Then I'm like, I should just pursue my modeling ambitions. And I was doing that. And Tyra Banks picked me. She picked me! I was so grateful, too, because I was not fully secure in myself. Like, I had one major skin disorder that, like, I literally end up, even I have to thank my ex-Kyle, because he made me focus on building out my product line. Like, I didn't realize when I was started modeling that they were using Photoshop. So I was literally ambitioning myself because I wanted to compete, and I was of the standard. I was already 5'11". I was already a size 2. And I was like, I'm going to keep it, and I'm going to go in there, especially it's first place that didn't really accept multiple black women. You have to realize that the black models that we do have in the fashion industry, you notice that they're not from America. They might speak English, but they're from Britain, they're from the Caribbean. They're not picking. They're not picking American borns. They barely pick white American borns unless they have the money already. There's a reason for that, but I'll get into that in another video. That's the business side of it. And I had to study that too when I was in college, because I took a career development class, and the teacher asked us to do quick research. And I had met a male model. He was the first person I met on campus during my orientation. He had already worked for Ford Models. He was 22 when I was 18. No, he was 23 when I was 18, 19, coming to be at this university. And he had already worked for Ford Models, and he lost his contract. Why? He has been a great one. He already worked for Hugo Boss. He already worked for Fendi. He already walked for these people from the age that he was 16 to 23, and now he's getting a degree. I was like, Jonas, what? That's my friend's name. Jonas, why are you here? Like, you already did it. Like, I'm only here because I didn't get it right away. My mom didn't sign the contract. And now that I'm older, that I'm not being picked this easily, because I didn't realize that I was giving up fashion and trying to compete. I thought I had to be perfect. I thought they were going to put the clothes on me. I didn't understand that models have to come with their own style, too. So while I was building up my body, which still benefited me, because there are a lot of models that can't do what I do. And so I say God always gives you a purpose that you may not see it in the beginning, because of my ex and me sharing my insecurities, it worked against me some ways, because he definitely used my insecurities against me. But at the same time, for the period that he was a good companion, he was a great companion. Like, he forced me to really focus on my skincare line, because the medications I was being given from the doctors were steroids. They were making my condition worse. Like, not all of the dermatological treatments that they give, especially for people of color, are good for us. It was turning my skin worse than it was before. It was creating, backlashes. And then, like, if I continue to ask for more help, it would continue to give me higher dosages that will continue. So I was forced to learn how to naturally create my own form of medicine and understand what was going on. I was forced to become a practitioner on myself. I was forced to heal myself and understand what was going on with me. It required me to clean up my diet. It required me to activate, learn about my stress levels. It really, really did. And, like, Tyra Banks picking me for a top model really, like, it changed the game for me, because, like, I had been validated. So that when I got the acceptance letter to my university, I'm holding both of my hand right now. And I'm like, which one do I pick? And my mom's a PhD. She came from Africa, came to the U.S., graduated from Howard with her master's, undergraduate. Am I still filming? I don't know when it stops sometimes. And I already got 34 minutes. But seriously, though, like, my mom was like, what do you think? So then, like, I pick the degree, and I meet Jonas, and he's just like, yeah, they use me, they like my look, but the more that you are utilized, and this is something I learned when I got out of college after I met him. Me and him stayed friends. Like, Jonas literally got me so many gigs while I was in New York post college, and I was so grateful because you learn that there can be good people that come into your life to bless you. You can learn that there are people that are in your life that are not blessing you. Like my ex, he worked for an employment agency in New York. I graduated before him. Why did I have to struggle sometimes? Like I wondered sometimes, and then why why did I feel like I was being sabotaged when he did say he was trying to help me? Because he wouldn't look over my resume. He wouldn't look over my resume. And you work for an employment agency. Like how did they hire you? He worked for an employment agency that remediated people who had been in jail and are on welfare. I wasn't that at that position yet, or at all. I had a little bit more. Therefore, it should have been easier to help me. He didn't want to help me, and that was something I had to come to grips with. It was one of the things that I mourned so badly. It's one of the things that when I came back to DC, like, because I spent 5 years in New York, like New York will toughen you. Like I didn't have time to cry for myself in New York. Like when I cry now, it's because of the tears I couldn't cry back then. Like it was the things that I couldn't because I didn't want to leave. I was like, I can't lose. Like I finally graduated, I can finally pursue this career that I really wanted, and now I have a bigger head on my head. Like I'm getting more education. I can aspire to more than just a model. I can be this. I can be that. I can work for a Fortune 500. Like my master's degree is teaching me how to become a Fortune 500 master. Like you know what I mean, business owner, manager, like executive, like teaching me how to walk into PepsiCo and help you, and then go to another company and help you, and then come back home and take care of my family. Like that's what I was getting, and like because I didn't want to leave because I was like, New York is like you gotta make it here. Like I couldn't mourn for myself. Like when bad things happened, I had to keep going. I had to take whatever job because I didn't have anyone up there. Like my mom was in DC. She might try to help me, but she has a family. She's sick. She's retired. She couldn't help me the way that I needed. Like I couldn't expect her to pay my rent every month. You know what I mean? Like I couldn't expect for her to pay my food every month. Like I couldn't expect for her to look out for me. I couldn't expect for her to take care of me. So I had to take care of myself. I had to take care of myself with someone I thought was going to help me. And it was actively. And I couldn't cry about it because I had no one else to talk to. Like, no, and the people that I did talk to, like sometimes you talk to your coworkers, like, you can't be in a breeding ground where you're supposed to be working together and they're hating. And that was something you learn about your organizational behavior. Like, I would often talk to my mom. My mom was like, why do you think that they would want anything good for you? Like half of the people you work, I would literally talk to my mom on the phone. Like I went to a retail job after my boyfriend was jealous that I was a manager, so I pulled myself down. So I worked retail before I became a personal trainer, and my mother was like, why do you expect any of these people that you're working with you to sympathize with you? None of them have your degree. Like they would love to be you. Like I would often get from my coworkers, like, why are you here? Like you should be modeling. Not them not understanding the reality of what it means to be a model because they've never been the height, they've never been weight, they never qualified for the position in the first place. So there's an envy that comes with it. Like you can't deny it. Like if you're not someone who has it, you will never understand the envy, the burden of having something. Not to say that you don't want it, but the burden of other people's perception of your blessing can make it so hard for you to get anything because you're often surrounded by people who don't think you deserve another thing. They don't think, they're like, you've already been blessed enough. Why should another blessing come to you? They're like, when am I going to get rained on? Without realizing they're being blessed in a different way. Like God is, they say in the Bible, the gifts of the Lord are without repentance. There's a specific reason why I got this and you didn't get it. There might be a character trait that I have that you don't have that means that I should get this. And just like there's a gift that you have. Like, can you imagine what I would do if I had bigger titties? But then again, like, my tits would be in everyone's face because I'm already towering at this height with this itty bitty waist. I would make some people kill themselves. Like, they would just, if they hate me now, they would hate, if they hate me because they hate themselves now, they hate themselves more. Because it's just, at least, you see me, it's just like, she ain't got no titties, even if your man still want me. But, you know what I mean? like it's one of those realities. So, like, I was literally talking to my mom, and my mom had been through so much. She came from Nigeria, where, like, people will steeple you, you know what I mean? Like, you learn the history. Like, how did some of the slaves get here? They were sold by black brothers, right? Like, that's why when, like, people here in the United States, like, I'm born here, but I came from an African parentage. So, like, my mom had not been affected by the racial implications of the United States, the system that had been created, the injustice. I took a lot of classes when I got to college because race and gender classes were mandatory as an elective in order to graduate. And so I jumped on that because my mom's narrative to me as a mother, because your parents are training you. Your parents are giving you the best training in your life you ever had, good or bad. It's the best training you ever have in your life, good or bad. And I was fortunate that I had a really good mother, so I was getting a lot of good training. And her narrative didn't coincide with the reality that I was seeing in Black America, because when I'm American in school, I'm with Black Americans because I'm here. Like, I'm not gonna run into someone like my mom, you know what I mean? And it took years for my mom to become my mom. Like she didn't come from Africa. She didn't, not that no average African is gonna ever be her. And that was something I had to react. That's why identity was so important for me when I got to my senior thesis, because it's just like, you and I can have the same terminology. Like, you and I could both be Black females. We are not the same. I don't. You can't delineate a person because you want to create a social norm. Like, that's politics. I mean, yes, we want to help people. We often lump people together for our demographic necessities in order to try to help them or hurt them, whatever it is, because it does happen. But you can't say that we're the same. Like, my narrative is completely different than yours. Even if we have similarities, like, we can coesh and mesh together on our similarities. Like, just like two white men are not the same. They're not. Two Latinos are not the same. I'm mixed race. I am not like every other mixed race. We might have some similar sticking points. We might have some similar insecurities. We might have some similarities that transcend. Like, I might relate to a white girl better than I relate to a Black girl, and it's okay. It's okay. But people don't like that because it's hard for them to identify. So because what we learn in theater is that we're imitating each other. Like, from the moment that you step on this earth as a baby, you are learning everything about yourself from around you. You are picking up, like a computer, what you want to become, what you actually are, what you're being acknowledged for, and what is and what won't be. It is completely determined by a host of internal and external factors. You know what I mean? Like, I will definitely have some different experiences than you just because of my physical. Just because of my physical. But I can have someone that has the same similar physicality as me, and my internal, my mental, my emotional, like, you know what I mean, my spiritual, can still make us different. And that I really delved into that for my senior thesis. And I delved into that, and I because of my thesis, because of my screenplay, I wanted to play with, like, brainwashing. So, like, I literally had to study, like, CIA tactics, like Project Monarch, which was done in the 70s. And so then, like, how do you reprogram yourself? And it became really interesting because, like, I found myself at multiple times when I was in New York going back to my thesis. I was like, okay, I've been traumatized. Like, I literally came back to DC because I had an ex. I was so in love with him when I was in high school, and I left off because I was like, it'll never work. And I went to New York. Like, my love for him somehow sent me. I was like, it'll never work, but I loved him so much. Like, anyone who knows me knows my first 2 years, I was in love with that boy still. Like, I was like, when I graduate, something's gonna happen. I couldn't believe somehow, some way, me and him still ended up seeing each other again, going to church with each other years later. Like, I could not believe it. It might still never be able to work. It might have never, but God might have still used it. Like, I was just like, wow, like, I wouldn't have gotten to college for whatever you, because I wasn't thinking, like, if you didn't say no at that time, I wouldn't have gone here. And, you know, my love for him had kept the discipline on me, because I was like, I didn't want to be bothered by anybody. So I was really just focused on school. I was just like, he's at this school in Maryland, he's going to graduate, and then I just have to prove myself. It was an insecurity. It was so full, but it still worked for me. Like, you don't know how certain things work for you, because I was just like, I had to prove myself. Like, I got proposed to twice, my freshman year in college. One by a master's student who came from Russia, another one by a millionaire's son. The first 3 months of my university, I was like, but I was still in love with this guy. So then, like, I was just like, I don't have time for, even Jonas too, like, he would always try to, I'm like, he had a girlfriend. He always try to, when he was free, he would always try to, and I was just like, no. And I would always share my narrative. And it's so funny how your narrative can take you places, good or bad, because it's just like, my narrative with the relationship like that I was in, like some of the things that I do for love can really, you too smart to be doing these stupid decisions. I was like, that's how I. You're like, what's wrong with you? You're too smart to be making this type of mistake. But then, like, I'm just like, man, can you imagine? Like, I would have been a completely different person if I got certain things that I thought I wanted when I wanted it. If I had certain avenues open up before the time, like, there was a time where, okay, I didn't go for America's Next Top Model. Do you know after my freshman year, my mom let me go to California. She literally gave me like $600. It was just like good luck, and I found an apartment like before I left. Like me and her were talking because my mom really did want me to succeed. Like she would challenge me in some ways. She would make it seem like, but like her actions always showed me that she really, really believed in me and wanted the best for me. Like really, really, really. And it was like it's like I mourn it sometimes even more because I'm just like wow, like she didn't get to see all the things I learned about her. And I'm like, I didn't get to give back the way I wanted to at the time. I'm like, gosh, like I'm 30, I didn't get to give back the way I thought I could. And maybe the little that I was able to give back is good enough, but to me, it will never be the same. Like, it will never be the same. Because I know she cared. She sent me off to California, and the same girls that I was supposed to compete with in America's Next Top Model that didn't win, they had been pushed into a smaller agency. Do you know that when I went to California, I got picked up by a modeling agency, and I promised my agent that I wouldn't go back to the East Coast. But the West Coast didn't seem like the right place for me at the time. I didn't have a car yet. They were going to pull me out of my matriculated courses and not offer me the financial aid that I had already guaranteed. Like, I passed my freshman year. It was just summer break that I went to the West Coast. So during those 3 months I was there in the summer, I was just like, hey, I got a better deal going on the East Coast here. And if I stay here, like, I was so sensitive to how your life can go left if you let it. I was just like, they're going to have me working in a lower end job. They're going to pull me out of my education. And then the schools that I was trying to get into, because I had missed the transfer student rate, because if I had wanted to transfer, I should have transferred while I was in the East Coast during the fall semester in November, when I didn't even know I was going to end up in California. So that November that I was a freshman, I should have been asking to transfer to the West Coast. But I didn't know I was going to California until June. So then, like, June, I go to California, and they're like, oh, you can go to community college. I'm like, what about the credits that I completed over here? Oh, we're not going to take that. I'm like, you're not even a 4-year fucking school. I got a 4-year fucking school that's giving me room and board. I got to pay rent over here. It don't take a fucking genius to realize, I don't care how ambitious you are. Don't let the devil fool you with some false-ass dream. God is not a God of confusion. Like, you want to be act on faith, act on faith. He's still not a God of confusion. He will make a path. You will see the path. I was like, room and board, New York. But the same agent that I promised that I wouldn't leave, I went back, and he kept in contact with me. He had established relations in New York. He sent me on castings. When I literally walked into the agency that he was sending me for the casting, I looked on the wall. All the girls that I was supposed to compete with in season 8 that didn't win were on the wall. I was like, look at me. I got my first year of college done, all my credits. These girls don't got that, and I'm still in the same fucking room. And I didn't have to be on TV. And none of them got a single thing more than where I've been because I'm already in the fucking room. So then, like, it was like literally eye-opening for me. Like, eye-opening for me. Like, I was just like, God's hand is on this. Like, I was praying in college. Like, I took this yoga class, and Julie, she really had us, like, writing in our diaries, meditating, understanding that it was a spiritual practice and a physical practice. So, like, there are times where, like, when I didn't feel like I could gel with certain people on campus, because, like, you go to an art school, everybody's ambitious. Even the people within the liberal arts section, like, you got the biology major who says they don't want to be an actress or a model or a singer. She's in the biology department. You're in the theater department. This bitch in biology does want to be a model and an actress. She's just on some slash shit because she didn't have the courage. She doesn't think. And so then, like, I found, like, I had this one roommate. Not the qualification. Says she has no ambition for it. But whenever it came time to take pictures, you could tell. And I was just like, you don't want to be around people who don't have that level. They claim they don't want it. But at the same time, because they're pulling you. I had a girlfriend that You have to really learn how to separate that, and like it's a lone. It becomes more and more lonely. But then you look at the Bible, and it's just like God does not always make the good come in groups. Like Jesus might have gotten a discipleship of 12, but he was still praying by himself. He was still in the wilderness by himself. He still got put on the cross by himself. You know what I mean? And then when Peter got his turn, Peter was still doing it by himself. Like what happened to Joseph happened to Joseph, not his brothers. You might save everybody, but it's happening to you. It's happening to you. You need to understand your narrative. And that was one of the most important things you learn as a director, treating actors, because as an actor, I have to understand my role. And it's great if you have a little bit more thinking, you can understand how your role fits into the overall thing. But in some cases, first of all, when you're acting, your character doesn't know it's going to die. If it's going to die at the end of the play. Doesn't know that at the beginning of the play. You as the actor got to read through that, but you have to go through the motions of reacting, because acting is reacting. And so like, I felt like with the ex that I ran back into, when he told me he was like trying to learn and help people who were having post-traumatic stress, I was like, maybe I got that, and maybe I can help, because I had done the program as part of my research paper for, you know, how identity can shape you and how to reprogram it. It's just a lot of it's how you describe yourself and the situations. That it's all vocabulary, because your brain. We took a theories class for my theater major. It was mandatory theories class. So we learned about the importance of linguistics and how it affects the brain, how it shapes the brain. We had to learn about motor skills and dancers and how it affects the actor, because I mean, at the end of the day, even if you have this one career, even if you're a biology major over here, and even if you're still using the same body, you are a fool. And I'm not supposed to use that term, but the Bible says I'm a fool. You are really silly if you think that your body don't count for anything more than being a tool as a entertainment source, or your brain for. You still have to survive in it. It is still a mechanical tool. If you don't understand what's going on, not to say that knowing everything's going to help you, you still have to make the right decisions. You still have to be able to. And so then that was my research paper of like how identity is shaped. Like, why is this person so different than this person? A lot of it has to do with the way I think about myself, the way my parents helped me think about myself, the peers that I allowed to put around me help me think about myself, and also stimulate me by who they are. People around you, they say you're the accumulation of the 5 people you keep around you. Okay. If you're successful and you're successful and you're successful and you're successful, and I'm okay successful, okay, I might be the weaker link, but I might have a strength that you guys all decided that you want to be friends with me. You're different, you're different, you're different, you're different. I'm learning from you. I'm picking little things about you because we're friends. I'm picking little things about you that years later, there's things about my ex Kyle that I'm a little bit more like him now. Good or bad. Who knows? Certain co-workers, the little things about you, I'm a little bit more like you now. I might not be you. You will never be somebody else. You can't be somebody else. Can you imagine trying to force yourself? People try, and that's where voodoo comes in, but that's a different story, because you learn about that too, and especially since it's a theater major, so you got to really do your research, and when you start to do your research, it still becomes a social plot line. Like, it might not, maybe if the power is not there, the action is still there. Like, a sociological effect is still a sociological effect. If I want you to be doomed, I'm going to do the steps to doom you, right? If I want to protect myself, I'm going to do the steps to protect myself, right? And that's the most important thing that you can ever understand in this life. It's how you take things and how you reframe it. A lot of people, they get stuck in depression, and I think that my research paper is helpful in that again. A lot of people get stuck in depression because I hear people use terms about themselves that, like, I've gone through a lot of shit. I do not speak to myself or about myself the way I hear people. I'm not going to call myself stupid. I don't care if I made a stupid decision. I'm not fucking stupid. But you will say, people will say that they find themselves in a cyclical cycle. Why am I depressed? I don't know. Maybe what you said to yourself. Maybe what you allowed someone else to say about it. Sometimes you got to check people. Or sometimes you got to separate people. Because I would get in trouble sometimes. Like, there were times that I can be very humble. And I see someone coming for me. And I'll be humble, and they won't stop. And that was the thing that they taught me in organizational behavior, that HR, like, some cases, you got to move yourself. Some cases, you can confront them. All confrontation don't end out good. Some confrontations are best left alone. Sometimes you gotta move yourself. This person ain't gonna change who they are. They're a destructive person. They're destructive to themselves, and then most importantly, they're destructive against you. Because some people, they learn how to make good out of being nasty. They like that. They got used to it. That's the only thing. They can't change themselves. So they can, but they don't want to. They don't think they can. They can't change themselves, so they have become comfortable with being the side chick. You know, these are terms with the side chick, the swindler, the con artist. Like they're comfortable with that. There's an arrogance about them, like that comes with that. Like you might think I'm arrogant, I'm confident. There's a difference between confidence, self-esteem, and arrogance, and it's really important to know that because like if you don't have an esteem for yourself, like if I tell you how many people I know, like my mom was a 5'4" woman. And there were times where she found me thinking less of myself. And she's just like, do you not know what you have been given? Do you not know what you've been given? My mom would be completely different physical disposition than me. My mom was 5'4", heavy set and dark skin. I am the complete opposite. My mom would literally have to coach me and help me understand that, because society will try to make someone like me feel like there's something wrong with me knowing who I am. And maybe it's the same thing with you. There are people who will try to make you feel wrong for knowing who you are. Joseph's brothers try to make him feel wrong about being who he was. The Pharisees try to make Jesus feel wrong for being who he was. And Cain killed Abel for being who he was. Like, you gotta recognize that that's theater. And we know why. We know why Iago wanted Othello's life. Like, we know why. We know why he did. We know why the Shakespeare play Othello. We know why it ends that way. We know. Now, you as an audience might not notice that. It might just be entertainment for you. But we in the dramatic department, we're supposed to be like, oh, I hope they learn a lesson about this. Like, that's what I hope you learn a lesson about this. Like, I hope you understand what happened in the movie Pretty Woman. Like, I hope you understand. Because not all the prostitutes got to live like Julia Andrews did in Pretty Woman. Like, she was a different type of hoe. Like, really though, she was a different type of hoe. Like, he didn't just pick up anyone. Like, she was a specific type of person. She had a specific set of circumstances. And that whatever it was about her innately allowed that opportunity to open up for her. That wasn't gonna happen. Another hoe would have robbed that nigga. Like, really, like, think about it. Like that nigga, he was playing with the wrong fire. He just got lucky. He got lucky, because if he had went to another hoe, that nigga would have been shot in the head. He would have robbed. The girl's real boyfriend would have been in his house. They would have been laundering money out of his account. Like, can you really imagine? Like, it really does matter who you are as a person. And this video is going to go on too long, so I think I should just leave it here, come back, and see how this works. Right? Right. Let's see how it works. Oh, wait. I forget this is like a touch screen.